So after spending countless hours on your brand new masterpiece, you want to make 100% sure that it is looking the best that it can be in your shop, to make online sales, on social media, or maybe just to impress people in your portfolio. So these 5 tips are going to be great at helping you stay ahead of the game, and make sure you stay tuned to the end because I'm going to share a bonus tip for those of you who like to post on Instagram so that you can stand out. So the first tip that I have out there is mainly for my traditional artists, and that is to photograph your work properly. Now, ideally you want to scan your artwork, but in cases like this where the artwork is too big, photography is your best option. And as a quick side note to my digital artists out there, please don't ever take a photo of your screen to share online. It looks terrible with this really ugly moire effect. Just take the time to quickly export a JPEG, and that's really going to do a lot more for you, whether you're just sharing it to your stories or making a full-on Instagram post. So there's 2 really big key ideas that you want to keep in mind when you're photographing your work. The first is you want to reduce distortion, and you do this by keeping your artwork on a flat surface that's perpendicular to the direction that your camera is facing. The second thing is that you want to make sure that your artwork is well and very evenly lit. So for me, what I like to do is I like to hang my artwork up on the white walls of my studio. Then I like to use my big 4-foot softbox to just illuminate my artwork perfectly without any weird shadows or dark areas. And then finally, the star of the show is going to be my Sony a7 III that I'm using to film this video right now to capture as many details as I can. But if you're on a budget, all the things I mentioned are pretty expensive. You can just lay your artwork on a nice flat table surface like your kitchen table, and then try to get a strong light source and then something to diffuse that light source so that you get a little bit more even lighting. If you want to, you can just go on Amazon and get a 5-in-1 diffuser like this one that I'm using right here to illuminate me, and it's just 20 bucks, I think. Okay, so just a quick side note, if you're interested in all the products that I'm mentioning, I'm going to have an updated link to my Amazon store in the description. What I do is I buy all this stuff from Amazon anyway, so I can just have an organized little store to have all of the links there and all of the images so that you can peruse at your discretion and just pick what you want. And hopefully Amazon will also suggest cheaper alternatives if you need to with certain purchases. All right, let's get back to the video. Now, honestly, this process can be pretty challenging no matter what equipment you use, but especially if you start going lower and lower end and you're just using like a stack of books to hold up your phone, it can get really messy, but we're gonna fix that with the next tip. So the second tip is going to be cleaning up your image in post. So for me nowadays, I prefer to work with Photoshop and Clip Studio Paint on my computer using my Cintiq because it's just a lot easier for me to work and focus on the important details, and it's really cool to be able to see your artwork at almost 1-to-1 scale. Now, all of the different things you can do in post are really up to you and your individual tastes, but really you want to focus on getting contrast and cleaning up darker shadows and dark spots. So for me in this image, it's very graphic, so I wanted to completely get rid of any of the paper-like feel and bring those whites up to a perfect white without blowing up the midtones and then getting the blacks nice, deep, and crisp. I also like to use the clone or the spot healing brush just to clean up any debris or random marks that I don't really want in the final image or that may have come up while I was trying to photograph the artwork itself. If you don't have a nice computer or a large screen tablet like this, you can still use your iPad for these kind of things, and you can use Affinity Photo, for example, or even Procreate to get all of these different edits in. Now, the third tip is to actually add a lot more digital content to your artwork. Using traditional methods to kind of beef up or spruce up your traditional artwork is really, really cool, especially with all of the amazing traditional brushes that are available out there to make everything look cohesive. And for those of you who are digital, I've seen a lot of amazing artists. They'll actually take high quality prints of their digital work, get some nice, really cool traditional effects on it. They'll use like gold paint, for example, for a lot of the accents, and then they'll scan that back into the computer and get a really, really cool effect. Again, you can do a lot of these edits on your iPad or a smaller tablet as well, but for me, I like to bring it to my computer and my full-size Cintiq for a lot more freedom. For example, in a piece like this, there's a ton of tiny details to add in, and it's really easy to get overwhelmed and too focused on a small area. And it's really nice to be able to look at the whole thing and kind of track the whole idea and the whole concept of the artwork as I'm working. So if you want to focus on actually using your artwork images as merch, you want to make sure that you eliminate any transparencies that aren't very stark. Like, if you have a sticker, the outside of the sticker will be completely transparent. That's good, but having little faded areas is really where you want to eliminate that. So for this piece, what I'm doing is I'm creating a very tight, very thin white border just to make sure any of the areas that are kind of fuzzy at the edges of my my image and my artwork are clean cut. You don't want any effects or sparkly little spots effects like this in your artwork when it actually prints on a shirt. And again, just like I said earlier, you want to make sure that the outside bounds of your artwork is completely transparent. And I like to use a couple layers below the artwork itself set to very bright green or dark black, just so I can check and make sure there's no white or black specks of artwork here and there where I want it to be completely transparent. Now, the fourth step is absolutely critical for all artists, and that is to sharpen your image. So you can use whatever tools you have at your disposal for this. I like to use the camera raw filter in Photoshop or the unsharp mask. That's in a lot of different programs, but try and remember to do this at the very end of your editing process. Personally, like with this piece, I like to add a little bit of noise to give it that kind of really cool traditional paper-like feel to it, and I add this in sometimes before or right after the sharpening phase. Now, sometimes you'll be working and you see that you still need to make a little bit of change, a little mark here, and that's fine. Just try and find a brush that's really gritty and has some tooth to it so that it can really mesh with all of your other marks that you've made that have already been sharpened. Contrast is super important when it comes to grabbing someone's attention, especially online, so the last thing you want to post or have out there is a blurry image. Now, the fifth step is going to be to proof your colors. If you're working with a Cintiq Pro like this or an iPad Pro with an expanded color gamut, you're going to want to make sure the colors look like how you imagine them when they're printed or when other people are seeing them online. So for online usage, people are going to be looking through the sRGB color gamut, and so you want to set the proofing mode in Photoshop to sRGB to see how others will look at it. And if you're going to be doing prints, a lot of printing is done with the CMYK color management system, and so you want to set it to that to see how that's going to look, or whatever your printer is going to be using. So a lot of times the colors can shift when you do these proofing processes, and sometimes it's too much and you don't like the colors anymore. The best thing to do in this scenario is to just slightly adjust the colors back and forth as you test the proofing and turn it off to make sure that it's the closest to how you imagined it originally. Now for the bonus tip. This is especially important if you want to post to platforms like Instagram that compress your images. Make sure to save your work at multiple different quality levels and resolution levels. You really don't want to send anyone your full resolution image unless they're going to be printing it for you. This is to avoid people from stealing your artwork and reproducing it from websites online, or even just automatic robots taking your artwork and just slapping it on prints, and that's a real automated process that you might need to worry about. And most importantly, you don't want Instagram compressing your 48 megabyte PNG to this really ugly image when all you had to do was compress it in Photoshop beforehand and then upload that to Instagram so that the resulting image is much sharper and much cleaner, and then everyone's gonna be asking you, how do you get such sharp images on your post? And you can just be like, you know, I don't know, I guess Instagram likes me. So that's it from me, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I hope these tips make your artwork look absolutely stunning and people are compelled by the millions to buy all of your artwork, and maybe, just maybe, you can get a few likes on Instagram as well. I'm Ergo Josh, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.